today I'm here to bring you a book review of Magician by Lisa Maxwell. Now this is the Proustopia book club pick of the month for the month of August, and oh my gosh, I was so excited to pick up this book this month. But on the flip side of that, you know when you finally have the opportunity to read one of your most anticipated books of the year, you're a little scared that you're gonna be disappointed just because there's higher stakes going into a book like that. But I'm happy to report I was not disappointed by this book. In fact, I really enjoyed it. This is a YA urban fantasy story that is actually existing within two different time periods. We follow our main character Esta, who lives in a world where basically magic exists on the outskirts of the world. Not only is it fading and not many people have magical abilities, it's also considered bad. Essentially, there is this order that's in power that has been systematically destroying, killing, making anyone with magical abilities disappear from New York since its creation. All magic exists within New York, and at the same time there is a border that surrounds New York City that essentially prevents people with magic escaping or fleeing, as basically if they cross the line, they die. Magic in this world is a little different than, say, something you find in Harry Potter. It's not like waving wands, casting spells. Instead, it kind of exists more like a magical ability or even like a superpower. So people just have one set of talents that they're able to do, and that's it. Esta, our main character, has a power with time. She can stop and extremely slow down time, which makes her an incredibly competent thief. She can also travel back in time and back to her current timeline at will as well, which makes her very powerful. At the beginning of the story, something basically happens that kind of screws up the timeline for magicians in Esta's current world. Essentially, things have gotten a lot more dangerous, and Esta basically needs to go on a mission in the past to stop the magician and steal the book. The book is something that the Order has used throughout time to basically hurt and prevent other people with magical abilities from, existing. So Esta travels back to the turn of the century at the beginning of the 1900s and basically joins and infiltrates a ragtag gang of other people with magical powers to steal this book. Whew, I feel like that was a long introduction to kind of give you an idea of what this story is about, but it definitely has a lot of elements to it, which I actually feel like is what makes this book so rich. We obviously have time travel, we have other magical abilities, we have kind of this 1900s gang element, as well as, old New York setting, which is just overall super cool. Talking about my overall thoughts of the story, Esta as our main character, I really enjoyed her. She's smart, she's spunky, but she's also flawed, which I think is always really nice to see in stories. She definitely grows throughout this novel, becomes a little more trusting, becomes a little more skeptical at the same time, which is a weird combination, but it was really great to see her go through that. Another element with Esta is because she's so strong-willed, it was interesting to see her have to essentially fit in the culture and the time of, the early 1900s as a woman. Obviously, she was raised in the 21st century, very strong feminist, very strong and very vocal person, a very vocal woman, which obviously is not something that people in the early 1900s are used to seeing from a woman. So seeing that dichotomy was very interesting, and also I appreciated that it even existed because it does make historical sense for the story that there would be a historical element of women usually being meek, rather kind of prevented by society to voice their own opinions at will. So I enjoyed that as well. This story is not just told from Esta's perspective, but we also get a few other characters in this book as well, from other good guys that are helping Esta to bad guys that are in the Order, which I really feel like really expands the perspective of the story, making it much richer, much wholer, and overall I really felt like I got a very good grip on this world, on this magic, and on this whole new New York society. The setting of this book I also really loved. This turn of the century, old, dirty, grimy New York was something that I was such a joy to read. I don't know, I always have a soft spot for reading about books with people like in ragtag gangs of outcasts, like trying to save the day. There's something about that, trope thing that I will always want to read. But the setting of New York was great too. It was kind of glamorous, but at the same time it was like shady and dark. People wore dramatic jewels. Just the times were different, and I really felt like the author captured that time period really well, and it added such an interesting and nice atmosphere to this book. There is another kind of character that is the secondary main character to Esta, and his name is Jack. He lives and was born in the time period that Esta travels back in time to. he is a magician, and he basically hides in plain sight by, you know, performing magical acts for a crowd that people then obviously don't believe are real. Him and Esta kind of have to work together grudgingly at first. It's a complicated relationship that kind of grows in very interesting ways. I really enjoyed Jack's character, and I thought him contrasting Esta was very well done. I also liked his backstory. I also appreciated that he wasn't totally black and white. He had a gray morality in some ways. Essentially, he realized that he needed to do some things for himself, for his family, and he was gonna stop at nothing to get that. And while it's admirable, sometimes he perhaps does things that you're like, that's a little sketchy, man. But at the end of the day, I enjoyed seeing Jack and Esta together, and in terms of romance, I really enjoyed how that grew within this story as well. I don't really want to spoil or even hint at anything, but there are elements of romance in this that I thought were well done. Additionally, I thought the magic in the story was really cool. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that it's more based around abilities, not so much like magical spells, which I thought was just really unique. It was always very interesting trying to guess what each person who has magic abilities can do, because generally people don't like lead with that because, you know, hold your cards close to your chest because then people don't really know what to expect from you. So kind of guessing and figuring out what each person's special ability was very cool. It kind of gave me some X-Men feels, and we all know how much I love X-Men. Overall, I really enjoyed this story. My largest criticism would be in the middle it felt a little slow. At the end I felt like the climax happened a little too quickly, but that's really nitpicking. I really enjoyed this entire story. I loved the setting, I loved the world, I really enjoyed the characters and the time period. I thought it was a lot of fun. I don't really read a lot of like urban historical fantasy. Normally I read very like medieval, like way back in the day fantasy. So this was pretty refreshing for me in that perspective, and it was so good. I really liked it. Ultimately, I gave this book a 4.25 out of 5 stars. Definitely would recommend this if you're a fantasy lover or not. I thought it was super good. I hope you guys enjoyed this review of The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I really liked this book, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!